Welcome to the Flip Top Topper build. Hopefully today I can save you some money and really show you how we built the camper. I'm going to use the spreadsheet, so I highly recommend you download the spreadsheet. I'm not going to go line by line, but I do want to show you everything and everything we learned. The main point to this video is saving you money. So let me give you an example. Here are all the extra extruded aluminum pieces that I ordered. This doesn't include all the extra screws and nuts that I ordered because I ordered the wrong pieces. So for example, this 1x3 is not cheap and it's not cheap to ship. So I had to have 3 separate shipments because I ordered the wrong pieces. And when I go over the build, I'll show you where I made those mistakes. Really hoping that I see more of these going down the road. I think 80/20 is amazing product, and it really does work well for not only the bench and bed system, but for the topper that we're going to talk about today. So without further ado, let's dive right in. The coolest part of this build is the topper. You have many choices when it comes to topper. I got this topper free, so that's why I used it. But I'm going to show you when we get up on top of the truck bed later how this topper seals itself. But really it's just a trifold topper. It flips 3 times. Super lightweight. And really not that expensive, so if I have to replace this, I can. So what we come around to the side, and I'm going to show you how it locks into the 80/20. This here is really cool. It's almost like it's made for this, but it just fits right in that slot there. Really works quite well. And this is what holds it down. We are going to start off talking about the biggest pieces in the build, and those are the 1x3s that are on top and on the bottom, the ones that run the length of the truck. These are 77 inches long. When I measured the truck, I was gonna order 76.5, and I'm really glad I didn't, and let me show you why. If you see here, it overhangs just a little bit on the top of the bed, and this comes in handy. I'm going to actually close the truck tailgate and the door and show you how this is better, in my opinion, than ordering it too short or the exact same size as your bed rail. You can see here that the actual topper is a little longer than the truck. So what that allows to happen is it overhangs the bed. It overhangs the tailgate. The only disadvantage is you have to close the tailgate before you close the actual door. But I think it helps with water penetration, and it allows me, if you noticed, to put a thread strip underneath. If you notice on the rails that run the length of the truck, I used 2 thread strips to run the length of the bed that sits on top of the bed rail. And for the Gen 1, it works really nice because it almost gives me, well, it does give me a waterproof seal. So that's how I used the thread strips to do a watertight seal. One more thing to cover when we're talking about the rails that run the length of the truck. You can get these tapped on the ends so that you can put the end caps in with screws. That's one thing that I wish I would have done differently. I used the push-in caps and they work, but I really wish I would have had these pre-tapped so that I could put some screws in and hold those 1x3 caps in a little tighter. So one change that I would make, get these pre-tapped from the factory. Moving on to the extruded aluminum pieces that run the width of the cab. They are 56 inches long. And you can see here that the one near the tailgate I ordered with counterbores on the sides. This is very important. These counterbores are very strong. And there's a counterbore on each side of this 1x3. The 1x3 with the door on it is a very heavy piece. So don't think that you're going to be able to support it with a 45-degree angle support or other internal or even external supports. The counterbores work quite well for the 1x3 near the tailgate. Now, up near the cab, I did not get those counterbored. The reason why is for waterproofing. If I had to do it again, I think I would try the counterboard because the counterboard is very strong. And then just worry about the waterproofing later. It's an option. I have it as an option on the spreadsheet. It's something that you'll want to do from the factory. Now, why did I do 56 inches? Well, I measured the bed rail, the inside of the bed rail, and I came up with 57 inches. And so I wanted a 1/2 inch overhang. So if I zoom in real close, you can see here how it overhangs the bed rail. And this helps with that thread strip system. Even a bed cap system would help. So that 1/2 inch overhang, that's why it's 56 and the length of the bed rail is 57. But those are the second to longest pieces that you're going to order for the build. Here you're looking at a 56-inch tri-slot 1x1 that runs across the top. This is the only support that we have on the top besides the topper giving it a little bit of support. This is needed if you have a larger truck. I highly recommend maybe using 2, maybe even 3 of these, but it really helps give it that extra support. I did the tri-slot. The tri-slot is flat on the top just for water penetration, and I used this plumbing pipe foam. Highly recommend, so that you don't hit your head when you're inside the topper. We're now going to talk about the posts. We have a 2x2 here in the front near the cab. We have a 2x2 in the middle, and we have a 2x2 at the end. All the posts around the truck are 23.5 inches, so that the plexiglass that comes in 24 inches can fit in. You can see here that on this tailgate side we have a 1x2, which essentially turns it into a 3x3. You will need to run a bead of silicone to waterproof it, and of course you'll need to have some joining plates to connect those two pieces. On the cab side, you can see here that on the ends you also have a 1x2, but it's oriented differently so that we can fit the plexiglass in. And then we have a 1x2 that is oriented differently than the ends, the corners. This actually gives the 1x3 up top support, as well as allows the plexiglass to slide in nicely. The 6-hole joining plates, attach them, and once again you need some silicone. The 1x2s on the inside of the cab are connected with inside connectors that we'll look at later. We're going to do a walk around looking at the external joining plates. These are very strong connectors. You can see here on the cab side we have a 7-hole 90-degree joining plate for the corners, the top corner and the bottom corner. In the middle you have an 8-hole joining plate on the bottom and the top for that 2x2. On the back we have another 7-hole up top, 90-degree, another 7-hole on the bottom. On the back side we have a 6-hole joining plate, another 6-hole joining plate, and these are just really secure the 1x2 and the 2x2 together. And then of course you're going to have the same thing as I walk around the camper, the topper. 6-hole joining plates, 7-hole corner plates, 8-hole flat plates, 7-hole corner plates. And on the cab side, we have the 6-hole joining plates for the 1x2 and the 2x2. Remember that 1x2 is oriented differently. And then we have a 4-hole corner plate that attaches the 1x2 to the 1x3 up top. And it's really hard to see, but we have another one that connects the 1x3 and the 1x2, the 1x3 on the bottom and the 1x2 post. I said this earlier, but the 1x2s that are on the inside are connected with inside connectors. So those are the external. They all have 0.5-inch screws, and they all have 1/4-20 thread nuts. I used the standard nuts on the outside, and everything you see here is zinc oxide. One thing to realize with these plates is that if you do use silicone, which I did on the back here on this aluminum piece, you will have to move these plates so that the tube of silicone can get into the corners. The clear glass that you're seeing here actually has the panel gaskets. We'll talk about that a little later. We are now going to cover all of the inside joining plates and connector pieces. If I misspeak here and say the wrong one, I'm sorry. Thank goodness for a video where you can see exactly what I'm talking about. So let's start at the cab, and you can see here at the top we have a 4-hole corner bracket connecting the 1x3s. If we go down here, we have another 4-hole corner bracket connecting the 1x3s on the bottom. You can see here we also have a 6-hole joiner plate that connects the 1x3s. I had to do this because I did not run counterbores, remember? This gusset, I call it a tall gusset, it's a 4-hole gusset. This is one of my favorite pieces. I wanted to use these in the corners, however, they were sold out. I think this is a pretty strong connection, and this one here connects the post to the 1x3. You can see here's a 2-hole corner bracket that just kind of gives it a little extra support, and then we have a 45-degree angle connector here. These are pretty expensive, however I do think they add a good amount of support. You can't use these standalone, but it does give it just a little bit more support. And the nice thing is they do come with the screws and the nuts. Moving on to the inside, you can see here that this is how we connected the 1x2. So you can see the way that we ran the 1x2, we can use some internal supports. We have a 4-hole corner bracket, a 2-hole gusset, 2-hole gusset down below, and a 4-hole corner bracket. You could use some corner brackets on the inside here to give it a little bit more support. Well, on this side, the same exact thing. We have a 2-hole gusset, a 2-hole gusset, a 4-hole corner bracket, 4-hole corner bracket, 4-hole corner bracket, 4-hole corner bracket, the tall gusset, 4-hole gusset, the 6-hole corner plate, the 2-hole corner bracket, and the 45-degree angle support. So that's how we support the cab. The 1x2s in the middle really give a lot of support to that top rail and make it connect to the bottom rail nicely. Moving on to the middle post and the connectors, we are connecting it to the 1x1 tri-slot that runs the top of the build. You can see here that we have quite a few connectors. We have a 2-hole connecting the 1x3 to the 2x2. We have a 4-hole corner bracket connecting the 1x1 to the 1x3. We have a wide 4-hole bracket that connects the 2x2 to the 1x3. We have the 45-degree angle bar, which I think gives it some extra support. And then on this other side, we have the same thing. We have the 4-hole corner bracket connecting the 1x1 to the 1x3. We have a 2-hole connecting the 1x3 to the 2x2. And we have that 4-hole, well, the same 4-hole connecting the 2x2 to the 1x3. So that's how we connect the 1x1 to the 1x3. And it also helps connect that 2x2 to the 1x3 up top. Now, it's the same exact thing on the other side of the camper. Let's go down below. You can see here how we have a 2-hole bracket connecting the 2x2 to the 1x3 below. We have a 4-hole wide connecting the 2x2 to the 1x3. Another 2-hole corner bracket connecting the 2x2 to the 1x3. So that's it for the middle post. Moving to the rear, you can see here how we have a 4-hole wide corner gusset, and that's connecting the 2x2 to the 1x2 to the 1x3 up top. And the same thing at the bottom. That 4-hole wide gusset is connecting the 1x2 to the 2x2 to the 1x3 on the bottom. That's all we really have in the back, except this 45-degree angle that connects the 1x3 to the 1x2. And as we talked about earlier, we have some counterbores, and those counterbores are on the side of the 1x3 that runs the width that holds the door. And we have 1x3s on this side as well, connected with a counterboard. A 45-degree angle, the 4-hole gussets, and the 4-hole gussets. And now I want to talk about one of the most important parts of the build, and those are the clamps. Now the clamps, you can see here we have 6 clamps that hold the topper on top of the truck. These clamps are very important, and you're going to have to order them specifically for your truck. But make sure you don't skimp on these. These are the only things really holding it to the truck. I do have some turnbuckles down there, but they're not really holding it to the truck. They're holding it to the bench platform. So don't skimp on the clamps, and make sure that you get the right ones for your truck. And you may even want to get 2 extra, a total of 8. It's up to you. We're now going to talk about how I've built and attached the door. The door system is really just 1x1s. We have 56-inch 1x1s that run the width of the truck. And we have the posts that are 22.5 inches that run the vertically. We have panel gaskets on the outside for the plexiglass. Everything is connected by 2-hole joining plates. There are 8 on the outside and then 8 on the inside. We have 2 handles on the inside and 2 handles on the outside. The ones on the inside help us close the door at night. We have a thread strip at the bottom that just helps waterproof it a little bit and seal it. We then have struts that connect it. These here are 18.5 by 11.25. When you go to the store, you're going to need 2 measurements. The measurements with the door open and the measurements with the door closed, and then they'll hook you up with the right struts. One thing about the struts, you'll see here that the connecting pieces are different. The screws are 3/8 inch, 0.375 inch length, 10/30 seconds. The nuts behind them are also 10/30 second nuts. I did use the economy nuts, but the thickness of how this connects is different. So you have to have a different screw and a different nut to connect the struts. Up top, you're going to see the hinges. I put 4 hinges. If I had to do it again, I'd probably put 6 hinges. I also would use stainless steel screws because of the way the door is used so much. I think that's why these are rusting. It's really one of the only screws that are rusting, except the struts that you saw, because of the use. So I would order stainless steel, and I would order a total of 6. The screws are 3/8 inch, 0.375. The thread is 1/4-20 for the nut that is behind it. I did use the standard nuts on these, but because the hinges aren't as thick, then you need a shorter screw. The other screws and nuts that you see with the 2-hole joining plates are 1/2 inch, 0.5. The thread is 1/4-20, just like the rest of the outside of the joining plates. The struts that we use are 45 pounds. I really think you could get away with 35 pounds. The 45-pound ones are pretty strong. However, I wouldn't go under 35, and I probably wouldn't go over 45. One very important part of the door build, if I had to do this over again, that top 1x1 and the bottom 1x1, I would order those 1/16 shorter. I ordered those the same size as the 1x3 up top, and you can see here, because I did that, it's putting some pressure on that counterbore. At some point in time, I'm going to take this door off, and I'm going to try to shave a 1/16 of an inch, maybe an 1/8 of an inch off the rails that run the width of the door. Very important. Now on the 10 series, you can't put a rubber gasket on the inside here, which is a little disheartening. So I'm not going to take too much off, just probably a 1/16 of an inch when I cut those, because I don't want to make it so that water runs through the gap. But yeah, if I had to do it again, I would order those pieces a 1/16 of an inch shorter. I want to show you the lock system that we have in place. It's a simple latch that we ordered on Amazon. It is an adjustable latch, which is nice. You can adjust it and then close it, and then you can also use a lock, which is really nice. The nuts and the bolts are a little different. We have 3/8 inch, 0.375 in length, and they are 10/32. The nuts are also 10/32. This allows you to attach aftermarket parts, this aftermarket latch, to the extruded aluminum. One thing you'll see here is this 2-hole joining plate. This is just for a little extra security. I can loosen this up, turn it sideways, tighten it down, and that will give it a little bit more security. Okay, a couple things I want to highlight. The width of the cab. We use this rubber foam up under the 1x3 to help seal it. With this truck, we realized that the top of the bed, the rails, all 3 of the rails, weren't perfectly even. So we had to use some of this foam to really kind of level everything out and make it waterproof. Some other things that we realized. The cab bows a little bit on the Gen 1s. So what we did was we had to push the whole topper back a little bit because I didn't want the bed of the truck flexing into the cab. Something else that we did, might be hard to see, but you can see there the thread strip that runs down the 1x2 post. That thread strip that runs down the 1x2 post just gives it a little added cushion in case, just in case I hit something massive and it does flex into the cab. So those are some things that we did on the cab side of the build. I'm now going to talk about one of my favorite parts of the build, and that's the acrylic or plexiglass and the aluminum that I used. The acrylic I really like. It is optics green edge. It's 0.177 inches thick or 4.5 millimeters. It's great because you can use a panel gasket on one side and you can caulk the other side. We use the panel gasket on the outside and it's working quite well. However, you can also switch it and put the panel gasket on the inside and then caulk the outside. 0.177 inches allows you to use the panel gasket on one side of the build. If you use 6 millimeters, then what happens is you can't fit a panel gasket in. So this aluminum piece that you're looking at here, you cannot fit a panel gasket. So I had to run a bead of caulk on the outside the whole way around. The other thing with this aluminum, it's very heavy. If I had to do it over again, I most likely would not use the aluminum. Yes, it's strong. It's almost bulletproof, but it's very heavy. The acrylic works nicely. You can get acrylic in different colors. Like I said, you definitely get the 0.177. You can also tint it like I did with the benches on the inside. But I used this optics green the whole way around the camper, even on the door. If you go too small, if you get 0.1 inch, then you have to run panel gaskets on both sides of that acrylic. So I don't recommend using anything smaller than the 0.177 on the outside of the build. I'm going to give you a pro tip. If you do, or when you silicone the outside, you'll want to move these plates so that you can get the silicone into the corner. So you can loosen those screws up and move the plate out of the way. Something else with the panels, when you buy them at the store, have them cut them at the store. We built this topper around the plexiglass because most plexiglass comes at 24 inches. So if you remember the posts are 23.5. The slots are about 1/4 inch each. So the panels fit nicely, the 24 inch. So that means I only had to cut the length of the plexiglass. And I had them do that at the store. Now understand that they don't like to cut in small increments. So if you only need a 1/2 inch off or an inch off, they don't like to do that because it can crack the corners. So when you're designing this, think about that. Think about the actual plexiglass that you want to use or the acrylic that you want to use and how you're going to have that cut, because cutting it at home is pretty difficult. I wanted to give you a close-up view of how the topper seals to the top. You can see here that the topper seal falls down onto the thread strip, and then that causes or makes a nice waterproof seal. The nice thing about this extruded aluminum is you have 3 rails here, so you can move this thread strip where you need it to be so that it aligns with your topper. One of the most difficult things about the entire build was waterproofing the topper. You can see here that we used rope caulk. We tried to use silicone, which was a huge mistake. Huge mess, wasted a day. I do not recommend silicone. This rope caulk is nice because it's almost like a silly putty where you can roll it into little balls and then push it into the slots. You can then make it's so that it seals up where the extruded aluminum join each other, which that's pretty nice. It's not the greatest looking thing in the world. However, it does work nicely, and it does take a little time to go around the entire camper and fill in all the holes. But well worth it, and so glad we found it. I hope I covered everything in the spreadsheet. I really spent a lot of time walking around the topper and showing you every nook and cranny and how everything fits together. This is our build, but you can't get creative with these builds. Three advantages to 80/20. It is strong, it's lightweight, and it's waterproof. So those are really the reasons why we decided to build our own topper. The other thing that I'm missing is the fact that it's convertible. That's the coolest feature to this whole build. So I hope I see more of these going down the road. Enjoy your build, and until next time, thanks once again.